All right, pull up a stool. Welcome to this masterclass explainer. I'm going to be your bartender today, guiding you through the true, totally myth-busting history of what we drink and exactly how it came to be. We're going to look right past the fancy garnishes and the expensive glassware to uncover the fascinating and honestly sometimes shocking origins of the world's most famous beverages. Okay, so today's syllabus looks like this. 1. The well, base spirits. 2. Defining the cocktail. 3. Spirit-forward classic serves. 4. Sours and tropical refreshers. And finally, 5. Modern myths and marvels. Section 1. The well, base spirits. Before we can even think about building a drink in the glass, we really have to understand the raw materials we're working with behind the stick. Tracing the history of the well really shows us the sheer scope of human civilization right in our glasses. I mean, we have chemical evidence of a mixed mead and rice fermentation from the Yellow River Valley of China that dates back 9,000 years. That actually predates wine, which we trace back to 6,000 BCE in the Republic of Georgia. And speaking of ancient, the 1516 Bavarian beer purity law, which restricted beer to literally just water, barley, and hops, is the oldest food regulation still in force anywhere in the world. Meanwhile, distilled spirits like rum and gin came much later, evolving from colonial sugarcane byproducts and Dutch medicinal tonics. Now, wrap your head around this staggering number, 96.8 million. That is how many 9-liter cases of Jinro soju were sold globally just in 2024. To put that into perspective, that's more than double the global sales volume of the entire tequila category. See, because of historical rice shortages in the 1950s, South Korea actually banned rice in soju distillation. This led producers to use cheaper grains like sweet potato or tapioca. Today, its lower ABV makes it incredibly easy to sip throughout a meal, which has made it the single best-selling spirit brand by volume for 24 consecutive years. And that brings us to another absolute titan of the well, baijiu. This is a pungent sorghum-based Chinese spirit that, honestly, you rarely hear about outside of East Asia. Yet its market is worth a massive $91 billion a year. Let that sink in for a second. Baijiu alone outsells all the whiskey, vodka, gin, rum, and tequila on Earth combined. It's just wild. Section 2. Defining the cocktail. Okay, so now that our well is stocked with everything from ancient mead to billions of dollars of baijiu, let's move to the blueprint. We gotta address the elephant in the room. What exactly are we mixing here? Where does the word cocktail actually come from? Man, I have heard patrons argue for hours over this. Everyone has their favorite legend, but the historical truth is delightfully bizarre. Let's look at a few theories. So the theories range wildly. Some say it comes from 18th century England, where a non-purebred horse with a docked tail was called a cocktail, which eventually became a metaphor for an adulterated or mixed drink. Others swear French settlers in New Orleans served brandy in these small egg cups called coquetier, which English speakers then totally mispronounced. But my absolute favorite theory, okay, so horse breeders used to insert ginger and pepper suppositories into older horses to make them look youthful and energetic at auction. When humans started adding spices and bitters to their alcohol for a quick boost of vigor, they borrowed the term. No way, right? Well, regardless of whether it comes from a French egg cup or, a horse's rear end, the very first time the word was definitively outlined in print was in an upstate New York newspaper back in 1806. A publication called the Balance and Columbian Repository defined it exactly: a simulating liquor composed of spirits of any kind, sugar, water, and bitters. Boom. That gave us the exact, unchangeable architectural blueprint for what a true cocktail actually is. Section 3. Spirit-forward classic serves. Let's start mixing by looking at the heavyweight drinks, the ones that respect that exact 1806 rule and let the base liquor do all the heavy lifting. Think about it. If you take sugar and bitters, add whiskey, throw in some ice, give it a stir, and express an orange peel, you are making that 1806 definition in its purest possible form. And actually, that's exactly how the old-fashioned got its name. As bartending evolved in the 19th century and bartenders started adding all these fancy liqueurs and fruit, traditionalists kind of rebelled. They sat down at the bar and demanded their drink be made the old-fashioned way: just whiskey, sugar, water from the ice, and bitters. So the crucial takeaway here is that every single cocktail invented after 1806 is technically just a deviation from this original formula. Now, notice something about that process. When we make an old-fashioned or a Manhattan or a martini, we stir them. Why? Well, shaking aerates the liquid and heavily clouds the clarity of the drink. Stirring, on the other hand, creates this beautifully silky texture, keeps the drink crystal clear, and maintains that spirit-forward intensity without over-diluting it. So this definitively settles a massive pop culture debate. James Bond was entirely wrong to order his botanical spirit-heavy martini shaken. Sorry, 007, but you were breaking the cardinal rule of the drink. Section 4. Sours and Tropical Refreshers. Let's see how purely practical needs, like literally surviving the sweltering heat or curing a navel disease, gave us an entirely different category of drinks. The sour is all about a really delicate tightrope walk of balance. You've got the heat of your base spirit, the sharp acid of your citrus, and then a sweetener to tie the whole thing together. This is so beautifully demonstrated by the margarita. You know that salt rim? It's not just a pretty garnish, it's actually a chemical trick. Salt physically suppresses bitterness on your palate, which in turn heavily amplifies the sweetness of the lime, entirely changing the flavor of every single sip that follows. Think about how rum evolved right alongside this sour template. After capturing Jamaica in 1655, the British Navy started giving its sailors a daily rum ration, often mixed with citrus to prevent scurvy. By 1898, an American mining engineer down in Cuba actually ran out of gin, improvised with local rum, lime, and sugar, and accidentally invented the daiquiri. Fast forward to 1944, and that basic naval scurvy cure had evolved into these elegant, highly structured tropical refreshers like the Mai Tai, which was created in California during the huge tiki culture boom. Section 5. Modern Myths and Marvels. For our final round in this explainer, we are going to debunk some modern bar myths and expose the brilliant marketing tricks that completely shaped recent history. Let's start with a true classic, the Tom Collins. The Tom Collins highball didn't become famous because of some master mixologist. No, it became famous because of a massive viral prank back in 1874. Pranksters would tell a gullible friend that a guy named Tom Collins was at a nearby bar spreading nasty rumors about them. This sent angry patrons on wild goose chases, storming into bars demanding a Tom Collins from grinning bartenders who simply handed them a refreshing gin, lemon, and soda water cocktail. Absolutely brilliant. Honestly, some of our most requested drinks aren't ancient traditions at all. They're masterclasses in modern branding. Take the Moscow Mule. That was just a 1940s stunt to sell struggling vodka. They threw it in a copper mug just to make it instantly recognizable across a crowded room. Then there's Grey Goose. This was created in 1997 by an American entrepreneur named Sidney Frank, who, by the way, had never made vodka before. He completely fabricated a traditional French heritage just to justify a $30 price tag. And it worked so well, he ended up selling the brand for $2.2 billion. And the Cosmo? That splash of cranberry juice wasn't added for some complex flavor profile. It was purely to give the drink a highly marketable, super glamorous pink color under dim bar lighting. But, sometimes a modern classic is just a really happy accident. In 1983, a famous model walked into a London bar and gave bartender Dick Broadsell this brilliant, blunt instruction. Wake me up and then mess me up. He quickly combined vodka, fresh espresso, and coffee liqueur, shook it incredibly hard to create a beautiful cream of foam, and accidentally invented the espresso martini, which is now one of the most dominant nightlife drinks of our current era. So the next time you sit at my bar and peruse the menu, I want you to think about the incredible history swimming right there in your glass. Are you drinking a 9,000-year-old fermentation tradition, an 1806 architectural blueprint, an ancient naval scurvy cure, or just a really, really good modern marketing campaign? I challenge you to ask yourself, what story are you really drinking? Cheers, guys, and thank you so much for joining this masterclass.